Hi, and welcome to my exploratory project on medieval times and the 21st century by, of course, myself, Annette Mayo. First, I'm going to discuss some factors of the medieval times. During the medieval times, religion and church played an important role in society. Christianity was the main religion during this period. Branches of Christianity, such as Protestants and Orthodox, did not exist at this time. However, the Roman Catholic Church did exist, and the most powerful ruler during these times were the Pope. The Pope was the head of the Roman Catholic Church, and they typically nominated bishops to rule areas such as dioceses. Many government policies were based on the Christian religion. The type of government that existed around this time was feudalism, which was a political and social system. Royal governments were no longer able to defend their people. Nobles offered protection and land in return for services, and less powerful people promised loyalty to more powerful people in return for protection. Those that existed under feudalism, of course, were male, but they were called vassals, and vassals were either knights or peasants who served a lord in military capacity. In medieval times, there were no healthcare services for the public. The quality of medical providers were poor, and people rarely saw doctors. However, those that were wealthy had the advantage to get access to healthcare services. The poor people did not have this advantage, and since they did not have the advantage, they would use herbal medicines as treatment regimen that were recommended by other people. In the 14th century, the crisis of the Black Death Plague was an all-time health scare. It struck Europe in 1314, killing about one-third of the population. Some arts and architecture that was created during this period includes components of the Romanesque churches, which included features of round arches over doors and windows, as well as thick columns in between. Components of the Gothic style architecture included pointed arches over doors and windows, thin columns, nave, rose windows, and flying buttresses. In arts, they had illuminated manuscripts which were made of sheepskin, gold, and silver, and these were made by the monks. Now that we covered some things from the medieval times, let's now talk about the 21st century. Religions and churches in the 21st century continue to have impacts on the society, with the exception that it does not govern our political or our overall life. Christianity is still the most major religion practiced today. However, it has expanded since the medieval times. Today, Christianity has several branches such as Orthodox, Protestants, Seventh-day Adventists, Latter-day, and Jehovah's Witness, just to say the least. Other religions that are also practiced today are Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Judaism. The majority of the population implement faith and religion into their lifestyle. Today, religion is so versatile that many people can pick and choose to convert to whatever religion they desire. The government today differs from how it used to be. In medieval times, the most politics and laws were based on religion, whereas today that no longer is the case. In laws in 21st century are not as strict as they once were in medieval times. In medieval times, there were harsh penalties and cruel punishments when the laws were disobeyed. In the 21st century, when crime is committed or a law is disobeyed, one can be found paying the fines or incarceration time depending on the case. Healthcare systems in the 21st century has expanded since medieval times. The society has access to public healthcare services regardless of poverty level. There's also access to free healthcare, hospitals, insurance through government, free or over-the-counter medications, free vaccinations, and so forth. In the 21st century, people still use personal herbal remedies either through choice or through religion practices. The art and architecture in the 21st century has been impacted by those times. The architectural material and images from those times has influenced the 21st century. There are some buildings from the medieval times that had influence on the 21st century buildings. For example, the Notre Dame Cathedral had an influence on the architecture of what was once the Twin Towers in New York City. Now, how did those in medieval times and the 21st century imagine their choices? First, let's talk about jobs. In the medieval times, people were more than likely born into a job or were assigned a job role or could only partake in a particular job. People did not have much of a choice in job role per se. In the 21st century, however, there are many choices. Many people today have the freedom of job choice, where they can look for a job of any sort and just interview for it. The only difference is that certain positions require education or experience for qualifications, but no one is born into a job role. In the medieval times, women had no rights whatsoever, while men had more rights over them. The men were the ones that were in control of making decisions for women. The women of medieval times were also assigned to certain job roles that consisted of household type jobs. However, in the 21st century, women now have the same rights as men. Women can decide to work any job and they are no longer controlled by men. They have the freedom of speech, right to vote, and have the right to engage in government politics. Life expectancy in medieval times were cut short due to the limited health services. When people got sick, they often tried remedies for treatment, which was the only choice they had. But when there was an outbreak like the Black Death, it killed most of the population regardless of age. In the 21st century, thanks to the expansion of technology, medicine, healthcare services, people have a better chance of survival and living even past 80 years old, opposed to those of the medieval times where their lives were cut short, unfortunately. In medieval times, cultural education consisted of Christian religious authority, transcendent and eternal truth, existence of permanent values within a stable society. In the 21st century, education consisted of changing universe, relativity of values, scientific method, tentative truths, and educator propensity for change, innovation, and process. The 21st century still have educational religious institutions within their churches. However, those that are willing to get their education through churches are through personal choice and preferences. The 21st century education also has less expectations for graduation purposes opposed to those of the medieval times. Finally, what did those in the medieval times and 21st century accomplish? Let's talk about jobs. In the medieval times, those that were inventors made accomplishments through the succession of paper money, magnetic compass, gunpowder, rockets, mechanical clocks, movable type printers, and new plows, to say the least. Other accomplishments were the monetary system of the first banking system, mercantile organizations. In the 21st century, one can make accomplishments through jobs by growth opportunities and accepting higher positions. Other job successions consist of getting awarded or acknowledged for hard work through companies, and also jobs that make societal changes for the better are also an accomplishment. In medieval times, women felt that if they were committed to their job roles, did what was expected by obeying their men, that alone was an accomplishment. However, in the 21st century, women have accomplished their overall equality to have the same rights as men. Today, women are even able to go into office to become a president if they desire. Although it has yet to happen, I am sure someday in the future we will have our first woman president. In medieval times, since they have since they had limited resources, they would try to help others and medically treat others as an accomplishment, but they did not have the proper resources to help stop the spread in disease, nor did they have proper hand hygiene. This led to getting people sicker and having higher death rates. However, in the 21st century, within research studies and having proper resources, healthcare providers can take care of people by using proper technique without the spread of infection or disease. Because of this, we have a lower mortality rate and people live longer in today's society. In medieval times, in the Western European education, it focused on literacy and reading. It was an accomplishment if people were able to follow through on the material by writing or reading poems, songs, stories, and written local dialects. It was also an accomplishment to attend universities that offer course studies based on classical models, as well as townspeople building churches and cathedrals as symbols of their Christian faith and their civic pride. In the 21st century, there are many different levels of education, from churches to private institutions and universities. It is always an accomplishment when one has a high GPA, and graduate and eventually work in their desired fields in a professional career. Thank you for watching.